Hey everybody, it's Brandon Lake, and I'm here with my dad, Mac Lake, and we thought it'd be really special to bring you a podcast talking about family, life, leadership, creativity, and much more. Welcome to Generational Leadership. So obviously my whole life, as long as I can remember, I've been going to church, grew up in a church plant. So your love for the church had to have started somewhere. Talk to me about, why you fell in love with the local church.
Oh gosh, Jesus changed my life through the local church. So I was an extremely shy kid growing up. I was voted the shyest kid in my 9th grade class.
That's not a very fun thing to get voted.
not the one you aspire to. You know, class clown, best looking, whatever. Yeah, I got shyest.
Shy.
Yes. And it's a funny story, though, that the girl that got voted the shyest in my class in the 9th grade, we ended up going on a date together in the 11th grade. We were both still shy.
Still shy.
It was the worst date in the world. Wow. 2 shy people.
We're destined for each other.
Oh, we rode in silence to a concert, rode in silence back, ate at Shoney's. It was, anyway, that's not where I fell in love with the church. But I was such a shy kid.
Yeah.
And the church provided a safe place. People there loved me, valued me, and it's a small country church.
Yeah.
And then mom and dad loved the church. I saw them make sacrifices for the church. And I knew it was their love for Christ, but it was also exhibited through the love for the local church. And so I caught that. And my dad used to take little sermon pamphlets and put them on my nightstand. Never one time did he say read them. He would just put them on my nightstand. And I would read through those.
Wow.
And just feed on, and it would have one verse and then a sermon around that one verse. And I would just feed on that as a 13-year-old, you know.
Wow.
And it just fueled a love for Christ. And then going to church, there was something about the community that connected with my soul.
Yeah.
And so early on I felt called to go into ministry, but I felt like I wasn't qualified, you know, because I was so shy.
Yeah.
And it was people in that church that challenged me, encouraged me, championed me, believed in me. And so I saw the transformation happen. They were the hands and feet that God used to shape me into more like into His image. Yeah. And that was through the local church. And so that's where just early age, just fell in love with the church. How about you?
I mean, I could say all the same things. It's where I really found community, like real community. And I've, found leaders that pulled things out of me I didn't know what was there. Yeah. And I feel like it's where I discovered myself, you know?
Yeah.
And like real friendships. I grew up obviously in the church, and so it was a place of fun.
You didn't have a choice.
I didn't have a choice. Honestly, I can always say I loved it. And it was like such a place of fun. And, not obviously when you're like super young, I don't understand fully what's going on. You know, it was like where Nick at Night happened and people got gacked, on Saturday night, and then Sunday it's just where we go to sing songs and I hang out with my friends. And
the fun part wasn't during the service.
Yeah.
The fun part was before and after.
Exactly. Y'all made church fun though. You put a skate park out back, and basketball court and baseball fields, and it was, but as I came into like my teenage years, it's also where I found people that I could confess things to that I was struggling with, or that I just wasn't comfortable enough to tell you and mom, and it's it's where I found accountability, and I feel like it's honestly, it's where I found the relationships that helped me turn from a boy into a man, and it just became my community, and that's where I fell in love with like my calling and leading worship, and it's where I discovered my purpose and the things that God had for me. And I don't know that I would have found that if I didn't have the church. And it's where I was able to be fully like creative and wild and obviously play music. But then my church, they adopted my songwriting, and they encouraged it, and they poured gas on the fire, and it's like they were just champions of me. The church has always been a place for me where I could grow and I could learn and I could be more and more who God's called me to be. It's just been easy to be that.
Yeah. In my 30s, I was at a point where I was like, can I call it a holy discontent with church?
Yeah, I've experienced that too. Yeah,
it's not a judgment upon the church. It's a holy discontent.
Yeah,
that it's when God's calling you to be a part of making a change, and so it's that holy discontent of, okay, something's got to change in the way we do church.
Yeah,
and I was feeling that in my 30s. I remember years ago telling you, when you first started songwriting, I think it's 6 or 7 times in the Psalms, it says, "Sing unto me a new song." Mm-hmm. And I would share with you, hey, the reason he says sing a new song, because if we're only singing old songs, it's a reflection of what God's done in our past.
Wow.
But it's when God is doing a new work, you have to sing a new song.
Yeah.
And so I think God is creator. It goes back to that creator thing we talked about another time. But God is shaping and creating his church.
Yeah.
And so in my 30s, I knew something needed to change, and that God was calling me to be a part of it. And what's interesting is when that happens, you feel like you're the only one that has the idea at first, and then you start talking, and other people going, they're doing that out here, and such, and so-and-so's doing this, and you find out, God's already moving, and now he's inviting me into the change.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that's why we planted a church. Because I was serving in an existing church, Polly's Island Baptist Church, phenomenal church. We loved it. But I remember I invited a guitarist into our worship, because I was leading worship at that point, and I had him do a guitar solo that was just rocking.
Yeah.
And I got so many complaints after that service.
Wow.
And instead of being upset, I realized I violated the worship culture of that church. We had been stretching it, but I stretched it too far.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, okay, I got to go do a new thing.
Yeah.
And the church and my pastor supported me, so we went and started Carolina Forest. And our tagline was a new kind of church for a new kind of community.
Wow.
Because it was a brand new community. And so we did things that were different in that day.
Yeah. Yeah. But now we look back and we're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe, like, Dad, y'all did skits. Skits!
That was hot back then.
I can't imagine.
Drama. They weren't called skits, it was called drama. Drama ministry.
Oh my gosh. Like, now, can you imagine now if you came to church and someone did a little drama?
They're so cheesy.
It's the cheesiest. Like, it's like someone coming up with, they're at the airport. And it's like, she has like all these bag. She's like, I've got so much baggage, and then Christ comes in and takes the baggage, and she becomes free and delivered.
I'm sure we did that one.
Yeah, and there's the Life Song. I think it's called Life Song skit where Jesus ends up running in front of like the devil trying to get at some kids wrestling with their own things. Like one's a druggie, one's a whatever. And he's like stretching his arms out, and he's like on the cross, and he's like fighting the devil. I led that song to that skit a few times.
That was so cutting edge back then.
It was.
And it drew people. I don't know, it worked somehow. But now it's corny.
Yeah.
But some of the things that we changed in my generation is standard for this generation.
Yeah.
Like the, 2-song sermon, 3 songs, type of thing, And I'm going, now have we fallen back into a tradition again?
Yeah.
That is it time for us to shake up the church a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I think so, because I think, I'm paying attention to my generation and the next one coming up.
Yeah.
And more so than not, I'm seeing they're like, I'm not buying it.
Oh, yeah.
Why? Why would I go?
Yeah.
I mean, what in the world? Unless somebody is deeply, deeply hurting, and maybe not even then, or deeply crying out for a community and just so happen to give it a shot. What they're seeing from the outside is not too impressive, and
right.
we're not doing ourselves a great job, by making it very intriguing, and it's because it's the same thing. And I've even found that some people in my generation almost want to go old school,
yeah.
because that almost feels so new,
yeah.
because what we've been doing for the past 10, 20 years, it's so boring.
Yeah.
And it's so man, I just, and so, yeah, I know that you've been longing for that. I've been longing for that.
Yeah.
The hard part is that we don't know what the answer is always.
Yeah.
But I think that being led by the Spirit and having these kinds of conversations could be the thing that gets us to implementing new, there being a new expression. Same truth, but a new expression, a new kind of invitation, a new kind of experience,
Yeah, yeah. I just would love to have the conversation. Like you said, don't have answers, but can we do some exploration?
Yeah.
I would love to see a church take, a little bit of money and a group of millennials or what you call Gen Z.
Yeah.
Take 20 Gen Z and $10,000 and say, here, you get $10,000, figure out something, a new expression that will reach your generation. See what they come up with. A little bit of research and development just to see.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a bad terminology, but to do some experimentation, some testing, because what I'm seeing is we're losing a generation.
Yeah.
We're losing a generation, and it's breaking my heart. And I'm going, if we keep doing the same old thing, are we going to keep getting the same results? Are we going to be content with a decline like this?
Yeah.
And
the definition of insanity I heard the other day is doing the same things over and over but expecting different results.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I don't understand that we would expect our churches to grow, that we would expect to be reaching people, more salvations, when we're using the same system for 20 years ago.
I ask, and I won't mention his name, but there's a guy one of the giants that I interviewed, one of the guys I meet with every year, hey, just want to learn from him. So I sat down with this guy who's a big thinker when it comes around church. And I said, hey, Tom, let me ask you, I said I wasn't going to mention his name. I said, Tom, let me ask you a question. How big of a problem is the template, the Sunday morning template of church?
Wow.
He went, it's the problem. Everybody's scared to break the template.
Yeah.
And this is what I'd love to see a group of people wrestle with. How can you take the 2-song sermon, 3-song template and bust it up?
Yeah.
And do something different one week and do something different another week. I remember at Carolina Forest, we did a service one time. And I said, you guys, this is going to be a 3-hour service. Everybody's like, what? Yep, 3-hour service. But here's the deal. You show up when you want, you leave when you want. All right?
Yeah.
But when you show up, you can't, and you walk in the doors, you can't talk. And we had 18 stations set up all around the gym. And there was music playing. You could sit and read. You could go over to a table that was just loaded with thousands of grapes and read John 15 while you eat grapes.
No way.
Mm-hmm. You could go over and put earphones on and listen to song. You could go over to another place. We had three TVs, video players. Watch video clips of of little things. I forgot what they were. We had newspaper print all on the walls, so the kids could go over and draw and write. We had journals where people could journal a prayer to God, and then every 15 minutes we would do a congregational song or a special, or do a guided prayer. People went nuts. They loved it. And I'm just like, let's use some creativity. Let's break the template. If I heard a guy recently, he said, yeah, we did something different at church. He said, the pastor preached point 1 and we sang a song. He preached point 2, we sang a song. Preached point 3, sang a song, and all of it aligned. And he said, people went nuts. He said, you gonna do it again sometime? No, just that once.
That's what drives me crazy is when I hear something like that. I've experienced that. We changed up the service. Oh my gosh, that felt so fresh. That was amazing. Sweet. Like we're doing that next weekend then, right? No. Back to it's too much to sustain that.
Yeah.
What is that? Why do we do that? Is it laziness? Is it we love our systems? We love tradition. We love. It takes more work to, especially when it's a big church, like to change something.
Oh yeah.
It's a big ship. So like when you're changing a cruise ship's direction, it takes 30 minutes to change a few degrees. Yeah.
But 98% of the churches in America are 250 and under, right?
Yeah.
They could change up so much.
Yeah.
Because there's so few people, and a bunch of those are kids, and so now there's so few adults in that room.
Yeah.
You could really do some special things.
One thing I'd love to see is, something really has me thinking. I was hanging out with, he's the CEO of Saint Laurent America, big designer brand, and he is a sold out believer, on fire for God, spirit filled. Just every time we're together, amazing conversation. Him and I are both crying, weeping. He's so tender. And we're talking one day, and he shared this dream with me that he has of essentially putting on a redeemed Burning Man. Burning Man is a festival out in the desert in California or somewhere like that. And it's a giant rave, and most people go out there and they're tripping, all kinds of drugs, going crazy.
Right.
I don't know if that's how you say it because I don't do drugs. But, most people are on drugs listening to this electronic music, and then there's all these kind of crazy art fixtures and all this kind of stuff. Looks like Sodom and Gomorrah type thing. It's pretty brutal, but he's like, I want to do a redeemed one. I want to put on a festival. And he begins to unpack why. And he's like, man, he tells me what he wants it to kind of feel like, this festival mixed with a wedding. And I'm like, why a wedding? He's like, man, has there ever been a place that you've seen a father, a son, a daughter, a mother, a grandpa, all dancing at one time together?
Yeah.
He's like, it's only ever at a wedding.
Yeah.
It's at a wedding reception. And he's like, man, we are getting ready for the biggest wedding ever. I want to practice before it happens.
Yeah.
And I was so moved by that. And he's like, don't you think that's what church should feel like?
Yeah.
He's like, why don't we start talking about that? Why aren't kids dancing with their parents? Dancing with their grandparents in the same room. And maybe it's not even just dancing, but it's it's coming together, and it's and I think there's such value in the kids going off and having their lesson, right? It's my kid would hate listening to the sermon. But I do think that I look forward to maybe the church integrating these generations more and having a experience in the Spirit together. Yeah. And I think that some things I look forward to maybe the church moving towards is fun. You had the guitar player rip a solo and they gave you hell for it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I jumped off a stage into the crowd,
yeah.
and I got crucified for that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was the smartest move, but it definitely showed me something. It showed me how much we want church to stay the same, how fun is only for kids in the church, how quick we are to judge a change or judge something that is maybe like pretty wild, and I do think that so many people are going to other experiences, a football game, or they're going out doing the rave thing, or they're going partying and all this kind of stuff, and experiencing so much fun. And I don't think the church has to be any less fun than that. I think it can be as fun, if not more fun, because not only is it could be those kinds of activities minus the drinking or whatever it is, but it's not only that activity that could be so fun, but it's also like you involve an aspect of learning about God and learning more about who He's created you to be. It would be actually life-giving. It's not just fun, it's life-giving. People leave transformed. And I don't know what that looks like fully, but I want to see some of those aspects of dance and fun and the generations, the younger generation mixed with the older generation coming together.
I remember I came up to you after a service one Sunday and said, I don't know why I thought this, but I just said, who's innovating Christian dance? Why is nobody doing that? I'm not a dancer. I don't want to dance, but I know it's commonplace and it's in the scriptures. And, I don't want to sit and watch somebody do ballerina type of thing.
Right.
Who's innovating Christian dance? But
here's the thing, though. I bet people are. There are people out there doing it. But the church isn't looking for them. I don't think the church, there's an invitation. And I bet they don't feel like I could just go to the church down my street and go, hey, I have something to offer. I'd like to minister in this way. There's a scripture, let me share this real quick. 1 Corinthians 14:26 says, what then shall we say, brothers and sisters? When you come together, each of you has a hymn or a word of instruction, a revelation, a tongue, or an interpretation. Everything must be done so that the church may be built up. And I've been thinking about this too. The church right now is built on a man hopping up on a stage, one speaker, and maybe 1 to 3 worship leaders getting up on, and they're the ones sharing. You look in Acts, and the believers form a community. And you read in Acts about how everything was shared together, and they prayed together, and they sang together, and it was this community thing.
Participatory.
So participatory. Right now, it feels like we show up, you sit in your seat, you receive a TED Talk, someone sings karaoke. And the reason why I say karaoke is because even worship leaders are afraid to share a word of knowledge. They're afraid to share a scripture. They're afraid to interject their own personality into the experience and go, this is what God's saying to me. And so but we come and it's like TED Talk, some songs, and we leave, and I'm just wondering, there are spiritual gifts all around that room. My church is 2,400 seats, and there's gotta be a way where I think it's great listening to a pastor and message, so I'm not knocking that, but where are the opportunities to get Ted and Susan and whatever, what's God saying to you? And that obviously is why it's so important that we have smaller groups, and that is, you can actually exercise that. But I'm actually dreaming of the day where it's less about one man and it's more about hearing from the community and what God's saying.
So I was training a group of church planters, and we trained them in small cohorts. I had 5 guys in a room, and they were talking about what they were working on, their church plant. They were talking about equipment they were getting ready to buy and building they were trying to lease, and what their service was going to be like. And I'm sitting there listening to it. In the middle of the training, I'm getting so frustrated. So I grab a giant Post-it, I rip it, I stick up on the wall, and I said, all right, guys, I wrote church is at the top of the Post-it.
Awesome.
I want you to take 60 seconds. I want you to jot down some bullet points. What is church? What is church? And they started writing their bullet points down. I said, now take your bullet points, turn it into a definition. So they wrote their definition. Tell me your definition. And all of them were things like church is a community of people who love Jesus and are working together to transform the community and world. You know, a community of people that always showed up in there, using their gifts, mutual encouragement, mutual accountability, all these sort of things that you would expect in a definition of church.
Yeah.
I said, now, let me ask you something. You're spending 9 to 12 months to launch a church. Is this what you're building, this definition?
Yeah.
Or are you just putting together 52 programs every weekend?
Yeah.
Because it feels like a program.
Yeah.
And I went to a church planter's first service. He invited me back then. Went to his first service, and when it ended, he said, man, what'd you think? All right, shoot straight with me. Be honest with me.
Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, I said, man, I mean, you did a great job. Great music's great, sermon's great. I said, but you know what? Your sermon, all you talked about was Jesus. He said, well, yeah. I said, you didn't talk about you. Why would they believe you talking about Jesus if they don't know you?
Yeah.
They need to get to know you. Tell some stories about you.
Yeah.
Let people get to know you. Here's the thing that frustrates. And I told him, I said, I watched a bunch of people, unchurched people, walk into your auditorium, and they got a 10-second or 5-second handshake on the way in. Mm-hmm. They got a 5-second wave on the way out. Why did they come?
Wow.
They're looking for community.
It's like almost it should be reversed, and that 90% of the time should have been
Community.
Spending time together.
Yes.
Give them a 5-minute word.
Yeah.
They can't devour a 40-minute message.
No.
They can't, that's so overwhelming. If that's your goal to reach non-believers, it's almost like flip it and reverse it. Like, give them community.
Yes.
Make them feel comfortable. That's why we started a few weeks ago. We tried out something, and instead of starting with worship, which can be overwhelming at times too, we had somebody come out there and just super relational. It's like, what's up, y'all? Hey, listen, I've been praying for you guys this week. Like, hey, Bill, hey, y'all, Bill got a promotion this week. This is literally as the countdown hits 0, or maybe at like 3 minutes left, he comes out there. Y'all, give it up for Bill, you know? So if somebody came for the very first time, they're not getting 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Like, what is this rock
And I've
show?
never heard this song.
Yeah, and I don't know the songs, and I don't even, it's so loud that I can't even talk to the person, and I don't know who that is. It's like he came out and he just tore down the ice was broken, and it just immediately screamed, hey, we're in this together.
Yeah.
Like, this is community. Yo, what's up? Hey, if you're new here too, like, hey, we're so stoked. Like, we're gonna be like singing some songs in a few minutes. But there's something about that relational, and I just proved to you that you can even do it within your program. You know, you can, but it doesn't have to just be there too.
Yeah.
Like, you can create environments where people can actually get to know each other and feel welcome, and not just get a 40-minute Jesus message and a quick handshake.
I heard somebody give a definition of community one time. If you think about church being community, I love this definition. He said, community is knowing and being known, loving and being loved, serving and being served, celebrating and being celebrated.
Love it.
Now, I look at that and go, and that's church.
Yeah.
That's church.
Yeah.
How do you program community into a Sunday morning? I believe it can be done. I really do. Larger churches, it's going to be more difficult.
Yeah.
Smaller churches, it's going to be much easier.
Yeah.
But I still believe it's worth the effort, because
Yeah.
people want to be known. And if they walk in these doors and out these doors and they're not known, why come back?
I think you had told me you asked some 20, 30-year-olds a question.
Yeah.
It was right after we did this. We were out here, and before Maverick City was big, we did a tour, which was actually...
It was pop-up.
It was a pop-up, and we called it a tour, but it was really 5 to 7 cities. We literally drove around in a white van.
Yep.
Creepy. And we hit a few cities, and I was like, guys, let's just end it in Charleston. Like, we can go there for free. You know, it's like, it's my church, you know, like, let's go there, let's sell some t-shirts. And do some pop-up worship. It was just me and Dante, acoustic guitar. The sound system we had outside. We'd met outside. That big, and it didn't even work.
It didn't work.
It didn't work. How many? A few hundred kids?
Oh yeah, several hundred people.
Several hundred kids showed up.
It was. I was there. I mean, it was older people. There were young people. There were teenagers. There were little children.
And we gathered. There was no start time. I mean, there was like a general start time, but there was no like production. There was no. We gathered, some people were looking at clothing. It's one thing that connects with my generation is merch, is clothing, and so Mav was like selling their merch. You just see people mingling and hanging out and talking and meeting each other, and you're meeting like my friends. I think you're meeting Dante for the first time, and my kids were there.
Yep.
My kid fell asleep during worship, which that's one of the most beautiful things ever, is to have your kids just slip away into sleep, and like in the presence of God as a bunch of people are singing. It was beautiful.
Blaze was on my shoulders.
Blaze on your shoulders, and no one cared. If you were in the context of my everyday, that would look a little bit weird. Because it's not normal. Not because it's inappropriate.
Right.
It's just not, no one does that. But because we were outside, it was a different kind of environment, and there was no production. It was just, hey, we're gonna come together, some merch, everyone is welcome from the community. And then me and Dante got up there and we sang, and half the time the crowd took it from us. There was so much participation that there were literally moments, and we did this over several cities. There were some nights we started song 1, started singing, and the people took it from there. And we're looking at people and like, you got something? And like kids would start singing the next song, and I would just follow them.
Wow.
It was one of the most beautiful things I have ever experienced.
Wow.
And I never want to graduate from those small settings, and those settings where it's like we're all in one. You're doing this together.
So I was mentoring 3 20-year-olds at that time. And I had given them the church is exercise. And so they all brought me a definition of church. And I said, okay, now your second assignment, your next assignment, I want you to take a blank piece of paper, and I want you to write out, I want you to structure a church experience, a worship church experience. But you're not allowed to do 2 songs, sermon, 3 songs. If you bring me that, I'm kicking you out of this group. Literally, you're not welcome back.
Yeah.
You have to think outside the box.
Yeah.
All 3 of them brought me something, blew me away. Their level of thinking, their creativity, the way they were looking at things, and the way it was integrated, participatory, and the thing that blew me away, intergenerational. They wanted intergenerational.
Yeah.
But it was during that session I asked them, I said, hey, let me ask you a question. If you had to bring an unchurched person, a lost person with you, either to church or the Mav City pop-up that you just attended, which one would you bring your lost friend to? They said, oh, hands down, Mav City. I said, why? Why would you bring your friend to an unpolished, low production worship experience?
Yeah.
Authenticity. God was there. Sunday morning, a lot of times it just feels like a show.
Yeah.
It feels like a production.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want us to cast judgment. It's not my intent.
No.
The intent is, can we ask some evaluative questions? If the trend is going this way, church attendance trend is going this way, we should be, if you're busy, you and I both lead a business, if our business trend is going this way, we're going to start asking some serious questions.
100%, yeah.
And we're going to make some adjustments and some changes, and we're going to begin to experiment.
Yeah.
And why aren't we doing that? I don't understand that. And so here's what I asked them. I said, okay, I love the 3 things you guys came up with. I love it. Very creative. What's going to keep you from creating a church like that? You know what their answer was? Money. I said, no. Money's not going to keep you from creating a church like that. It's not money. Now, I will tell you this. It's your generation that's going to change it, not mine.
Yeah.
All right, ball's in your court. You got it. Yeah, I'm here to champion you, but it's your generation. If there's going to be a change, it's got to be your generation. But here's the thing. If anything stops it, it's the existing church culture.
Yeah.
We're scared to go against the existing church culture.
Yeah.
I saw this, and this wasn't related to church service, but it's related still to church. I was in Scotland, and I was teaching a group of pastors, and I was talking about leadership development, empowering, and giving away the ministry. And they were looking at me funny, and I was like, something's going on. They're thinking something. So I finally said, all right, you guys, tell me what you're thinking here. I don't understand.
Yeah.
They went, if we started empowering people the way you say, we'd be fired.
Wow.
So what are you talking about? We don't do that. They hire us because they expect us to do the weddings, the funerals, the preaching, the leading, the this, the that, and the other, and all that. And I said, okay, but do you want to build a church based on cultural norms or biblical principles? What do you want to build a church on?
Yeah.
And that's what I would say to us today, and me included. What are the biblical principles that God wants us to take as we plant the next church?
Yeah.
As we structure the next Sunday's worship experience? What are the biblical principles about community and worship and love and the one another's? How are we building that in? Because we've made American Christianity is shallow because it's so singular. We've made it so individualized. And how can we bring, yes, we all sing together. Yes, we all sit and listen to a sermon together. But we're shoulder to shoulder looking that direction versus, face to face.
100%.
How do we get more face to face time on a Sunday morning? Eat together. And it doesn't have to be every Sunday.
Yeah.
But eat together, have discussions together, brainstorm together. The rabbinical teaching method in Jesus' day was question and answer.
Yeah.
When Jesus was in the temple at 12 years old and he was sitting among all those Sanhedrin and rabbis, they were having to discuss, they were debating and discussing and questioning back and forth. That was their learning methodology. And we've defaulted to lecture.
And so much of Jesus' ministry was around meals.
Meals. Yeah.
My life has been transformed, and we've been talking a lot today, and I talked about how that exposure to a different culture and being around Maverick City Group, who I'm the minority in that group, changed my life because of the conversations we had.
Yeah.
And it was always around a meal.
Yeah.
It was either creating together or eating together. We were crafting something together and I'm learning things. Or it was eating together where we were literally throwing out questions of, guys, how do we do this better? How do I love you better?
Yeah.
How do I get to know you better? Tell me everything about you.
Yeah.
And I want to see a lot more of that happen in church. That's where it really transforms. Around the dinner table or it's around some whatever it is, pizza or whatever.
Yeah.
But I want to even give the opportunity for transformation like that through community, not through a TED Talk.
Yeah. It's risky.
It is.
And that's one reason we don't make the change. But if we don't make a change, something's got to change, and every change requires risk. And I just believe anytime God's doing a work in my life, He's pushing me to take a risk.
Yeah.
There's no growth without risk.
Yes.
There's no change without risk.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to get into a place where I'm doing church, ministry, whatever, where it's just safe and comfortable.
Yeah.
I always want to be pushing, growing, stretching.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what He wants.
And it's who He created us to be.
Yeah.
We were never meant to settle. He made us pioneers.
Yeah.
Pioneers.
And that's what this generation needs in the church.
Yeah.
Some pioneers to test run and blaze some new trails.
Well, you have permission to keep me accountable and make sure I continue to pioneer, blaze new trails. If you ever see me settle, you have permission to slap me around a bit, pull me up higher.
Hey, and you got permission to slap me around if you ever see me criticizing the young generation and the way they're doing things, or if you ever hear me say, we've never done it that way, man, put a sock in my mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deal.
It's good.